If you've never heard the term scanxiety, it's a term that's used to describe the anxiety that a person might feel when they know that they need to have or are about to undergo some kind of medical scan, like a mammogram or an ultrasound or an MRI, something along those lines. And I first learned about scanxiety as a word at the Breasties. Welcome to the Mary Dee Show. I'm your host, Mary Dee, here to be your guide as we extract wisdom and life lessons from top CEOs, thought leaders, artists, spiritual luminaries, and wellness experts. My intention is to bring you value in every show that sparks an idea, helps you break a limiting belief, or encourages you to create thoughts that up-level your life so that you can know from the deepest parts of your soul that everything you want is available to you and that abundance is your birthright. In 2018, I healed from breast cancer holistically after surgery without the use of chemotherapy or pharmaceuticals. I love biohacking and plant medicine and exploring spirituality and what it means to be in relationship with spirit so that we can feel whole and complete no matter what life throws at us. My specialty in the business world is strategy and leadership, and my gift to each of you is my ability to listen so that I can help others see themselves. In each episode, I want to sprinkle you with some hope dust, tickle your funny bone, and inspire you to find your inner roar. Get ready to live your most aligned, purposeful, and joy-filled life now, and enjoy the show. Thebreasties.org, a beautiful community of women who are breast cancer survivors, thrivers, and advocates. And the information in that community for anyone that is going through or is familiar with breast cancer, I can't tell you enough. Head over there, be with the Breasties, see what they're about. And they do also, quick plug, they have a camp coming up in June. And we're looking for sponsors, also looking for anyone that you might know that's been affected by breast cancer. And this camp is going to be an amazing way for them to create connection and community and a lot of healing. So I definitely understand what anxiety is, but let me tell you, scanxiety is a whole new level of anxiety. It's a whole new category. In general, I would tell you that I am not an anxious person. I do a pretty good job at regulating my nervous system, and I have some really good tools that allow me to take a pause when chaos is going on. And the tricky part, though, about this belief system is that most of the time it does serve me. However, I got to learn something new about myself recently, and it was such a great lesson because I also know that there are other strong men and women out there who are holding their shit together and probably allow a lot of things to slide right off their back. And if you are a pull up your bootstraps and get it done kind of person like I am, then it's very possible that you too may be bypassing or even stuffing down feelings sometimes that actually need to be processed. And sometimes we can get away with letting the small things slide. For example, the guy that cuts you off in morning traffic. Maybe you do a quick swear or you do the opposite. You give a quick blessing and you're on your way and you don't think much about it. Right? Someone that cut you off in morning traffic is not someone you're going to be thinking about at 10 p.m. at night when you're ready to go to bed. In early April, I was cruising along with a girlfriend of mine and we're headed down to grab some brunch. And I happened to reach over and feel my right breast. And in the same spot where I was originally diagnosed with breast cancer, where I felt my original lump, I noticed that there is a small, little, hard bump. For me, feeling a hard bump or a bump of any kind for that matter, it sends a little red flag up. And when that flag goes up, I remind myself that not every bump is a bad bump. Not every bump is a bad thing. I know that if I allow myself to believe that every bump is a bad thing, then my mind is immediately going to go to the worst place, which is, has cancer returned to my body? And some of you might be wondering, especially if you've never dealt with a cancer diagnosis, of why I might wonder about cancer returning. And that's because something that I learned after being a cancer patient is that cancer recurrences actually happen pretty frequently, and even more so in breast cancer in particular. And the doctors are there to remind you that it's a possibility, and those thoughts, I would say, may start to diminish a tad with each passing year, but they're still there. So when I was diagnosed with cancer, I only had the tumor in my right breast. And one of the reasons that I opted for a double mastectomy was because my plastic surgeon, who works on boobs all day long and has for years, explained to me that very often she has women who come to her who only had a lumpectomy or a single mastectomy, and now they're working with her on a reconstruction of that breast, or they are looking for reconstruction in both breasts because the good breast that they had kept at one time has now received a recurrence of cancer, or just the way it looks. Breasts don't age the same when one has an implant and one doesn't. When one has had a lumpectomy, it's about 25% at least smaller than it was to begin with. So now it's sizably smaller than the opposite breast. There's lots of reasons. There's a logic here that says your chances of breast cancer recurrence greatly drop if you don't have any breast tissue for cancer to live in. Most insurance companies will actually cover a double mastectomy with reconstruction when someone has a single breast cancer, because they also understand what the numbers can look like. If you want to take a step further, I can tell you that even amongst the community that has the BRCA gene, you'll often hear it as the BRCA gene mutation. Angelina Jolie made it famous. Basically, this gene mutation says that the recipient has an 86 percentile chance of having breast and or ovarian cancer in their lifetime. So for anyone that has gotten gene tested and has decent insurance, it's very likely that your insurance plan would actually cover a preventative mastectomy. For insurance companies, it's less expensive to pay for prevention instead of paying to fight the actual disease on a diagnosis that has such a high percentage of likelihood. There's also some other considerations that are less about saving a life and more about aesthetics, or even trying to restore a level of dignity or identity around whatever value a person might feel they receive by having breasts in particular. There's also some other considerations that are less about saving a life and more about aesthetics, or even trying to restore a level of dignity or identity around whatever value a person feels they receive by having breasts, and in particular, how a woman feels about having actual breasts. The liberated hippie in me says, take my breasts because those aren't what make me a woman. But the other part of me that has had boobs longer than she hasn't had them wants to be able to still retain my curves because they are still to me a part of my feminine identity and something that I still want to be able to enjoy. Anytime my body is off or I'm not feeling well, I don't hesitate to get things checked out. I do hair testing as well as blood tests a few times a year to understand my own body's baseline of health and to gauge where it's at. These tests help me know if I'm getting enough vitamins or minerals, whether there's heavy metals or toxins, and they're also a good indicator of my overall physical health. There's also a mental health check. This is where I check in with myself or where I'm at with stress levels, how I feel about all the areas of my life, and whether I'm living in alignment or not. After I felt the bump, I made my doctor's appointment and they immediately ordered me an ultrasound. Unfortunately, I wasn't going to see the doctor for that ultrasound for 2 weeks. And for the next 2 weeks, I was off. I was having this internal dialogue with myself around knowing that something isn't quite right. And it wasn't immense. It was maybe like 2% off. I didn't feel like it was a physical issue because I was still getting in my workouts, getting my sunshine, my sauna, cold therapy. However, what was happening is that I was facing a lot of resistance when it was time for cold therapy. And I don't typically resist those the way I was noticing it in my body that I was resisting it this time around. I also was feeling a lot of resistance around journaling. Thank you for joining us on today's show. I hope that today's session inspires you to live an aligned life where you get to take complete ownership of your feelings and decisions to live in your truth. You can connect with me more at www.maryd.com. You can also catch us on YouTube at The Mary Dee Show. head on over to Instagram and Facebook and type in @VMaryD and just look for the little blue check to ensure you're on my official page.